Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alicia Brasher here at Cosmic Gateway. And there's not enough words to describe how excited I am to have Todd Medina here sharing this space with me. So, Todd Medina probably doesn't need any introduction if you aren't already following him on all the various platforms. I mean, what are you doing? I will put all the details in the description box below. So, if you're not already following his amazing shows and content, you can go and do that. But Todd, thank you. Thank you for joining me. This is an honor and a
Absolutely.
privilege.
Well, I have a lot of respect for you, honor you, reverence, and gratitude. You're a breath of fresh air. You really are. And I was really excited to meet you the first time that we did a show, and after that, we have yeah. Some people you just flow with, and you're just real. I love people that are pulling in like this type of information and code and downloads like you and like Morgan, and that still retain their down to earthedness, and
Yeah,
that's what I find really cool about you. So yeah, I'm
thank
ready
you.
to collaborate and keep this ball rolling.
Yeah, well, I guess that's probably the first place to start because before connecting with anyone and sitting down and recording, I sort of tune in to feel into, where to take the conversation. So I was, going through some of your content and videos. And I think what really struck me was the fact that just how, I don't have the words, the fact that you collaborate with so many amazing souls, right? And every time there's an energy exchange, the activations, the downloads, the remembrance that happens, and you do this all day, every day,
Mhm.
and you broadcast it so that people can share that experience.
Mhm.
Like that's phenomenal work of service. Um,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
energies
it's
must be intense too to go back to back as you do, and then
mm.
I can't
It's
even
like
imagine what you'd be like at the end of the day.
well, it's funny because I started doing videos. I did a lot of writing and putting my writing to images um, from about 2012, 2011, late 2011 till about 2015. And then in the early part of 2015, which is interesting, um, I had gotten a second download. I had gotten a download about Sology in 2012 and on Morgan's birthday. And I didn't know Morgan, but I was given her the name Sology on her birthday in 2012. And then I established the Sology group a couple of days later. And then 3 years later, on her birthday, and I didn't know this, and this is a true story because it
Which,
came up on my, yeah, it came up on my memory and my
huh?
Facebook memories. I was given Sology One Studios. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, well, go downstairs and make a studio, and it's got something to do with music. And I'm like, okay. And at the time I didn't even have internet. I couldn't afford it. I had a little phone, and I would record videos for YouTube and Facebook, and then I would upload them to at the grocery store down the street. And but anyway, my point is, so that was around on Morgan's birthday again,
And
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 then
what date is that? Just out of my own curiosity.
March the 10th, so March the 10th, 2012, Archangel Michael Consciousness came in and gave me the word Sology, and I said, what is that? He said, the other side of truth. And then in 2015, I was upstairs and I got the download about Soldier One Studios. And I'm like, what is that? And it was on her birthday. And I didn't know that till like last year when the memory popped up, and it
Oh my
showed,
goodness.
showed me that. But so what happened was I started to do these videos and load them up to YouTube and Facebook. And at the same time, if I go back and look at, if you go back and look at when you became friends with somebody, me and Morgan became friends in March of 2015 as well. And so for about 6 months, I stalked her and I didn't approach her. And then I eventually did. And then we connected September of 2015. But so we spent about 2 months, 3 months talking every day. And I remember a couple of things. One, I was having these conversations with her about ascension, which I didn't know anything about, galactic, I didn't know anything about, and just different subjects that I didn't know anything about, but they resonated and they were kind of an innate knowing. And so then Morgan, being the very direct person she is, she said to me, you really should start interviewing people. And because it's not all about you. And she meant that in a nice way, but you know what I mean. So she said that to me, and then slowly over time in 2016 and really started to take off in 2017, I started interviewing people, just people that I would see on Facebook that you would see making comments or, whatever the case was. And so that's kind of where it began. And in 2017, she came to the US, and sometime before that happened, she said to me, "You should call it Soul Speaks 5D." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's it." So that's kind of how it all happened. And then she came in 2017 and we spent a few weeks together. But then she came back in 2018. And when she came in 2018, we were at about, probably at about 300 episodes. And she came in and took over and injected her energy, and she started arranging who was coming on and really taking hold of the frequency of it. And we went from 300 shows to 2,350 today. So we're talking 2,000 shows in what, 2 years, 2.5 years. Yeah, so it's been really a very organic thing. We found that whenever we tried to force something or control it or structure it, it just didn't work. And just last week, as some people know now, we received a late night email from, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was in Sedona, and I went to one of the Solji emails, and I saw David Icke had answered us. And I had written him like 3 or 4 times, and one of our team members had written him and given him this really long description of Sology, like really everything I just told you. Just she put it all in there. Even Todd was on the streets for 2 years, and he started from and about Morgan and everything, and he wrote back and said, "I can do it November the 18th at 5 o'clock UK time." So we're like, "What?" So yeah, something's going on, and I think we're really, Sology is, as I always understood it, is like we all are a reflection of the universe. So I've always been told, continue to add frequencies to an ever expanding vibration, and the universe will work and conspire with you. And so there's a lot of powerful things happening, a lot of powerful abundance frequencies being experienced by people. And so Sology being a reflection of that, or individually being a reflection of that, each of us. I think there's some really powerful things coming, but that's the short version of how
Oh,
this all
thank
happened.
you. Thank you for sharing that. And I just had so many wow moments as you're going through that. And I'm so glad that you put that out, because I think it's so important to encourage and inspire people to get out there and do and to hear a story like that, and just how organically it just grew, and the synchronicities is I just want to share with you, 10th of March is my birthday. And so
Is it
there's
really? Are you kidding me?
So
Morgan's
some of
gonna
the
freak
dates
out.
you
Yeah.
put in, I was like, oh yeah, there was,
And she was
important.
she was born in Melbourne. So there we go.
Isn't that crazy?
It is
Oh,
crazy. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, everything's moving so fast. Um, it's like, all these collaborations are becoming forces because she told me when I met her, that she had gotten a download almost 20 years before, that we were moving out of the age of duality into the Trinity. And then as time went on and I began to understand what that was, as she explained it to me, it was that where two or more come together, a third energy is created, and that third energy is that golden child energetic force, and that it has a consciousness of its own in and of itself, and that it begins to take an equal part. And I've watched this happen, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's happening in relationship levels, group levels, and other collaborative levels. So, yeah, I think we're in for a hell of a ride.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's so amazing to watch the unfolding of the hard work that has been put in.
Yeah.
I had this message going back a couple of months ago that the second part of the year there would be a lot of positive plot twists. So up until that point, the plot twists sort of had more of a different, you know, uh, way of interpreting it. It was more of that kick up the ass and get into alignment. But now it's the unexpected blessings of abundance that are materializing. It's just phenomenal. And you're
Yeah.
the perfect example of that, of what's happening in your life with, not just the David Icke thing, just was, to me, I
Isn't that
got so
crazy?
excited. It was just amazing.
Well, and that's another example is, so I for some, we connect every night, and I know I've told you this before, but so we connect every night. We put our hands together, and then we see what happens. That night, I couldn't lay in bed any longer. Like, she had gone to sleep, and I just had to get up, and then I went and I found the email. So then eventually I went to sleep, and then we left Sedona, and we drive 5 hours home, which is in Arkansas. And the lady reached out to us. 66 years old. She's had a stroke. She was in the hospital for 4 months. She's been connected in crystals and essential for 20 years. And so she hit us up and she said, if you want it, come get it. I have a 23-foot bus for you. And she's, I can't use it anymore. She'd only been watching Sology for 3 weeks. And then a hawk flew in front of my vehicle, and I thought, because I was thinking, man, I don't want to drive back 5 hours and then 5 hours back and another 15 hours after that. And the universe just said, no, go get it. So these are the things that are occurring for people. They just come out of left field. It's such a different type of experience to adjust to, because we keep waiting for the other shoe to drop in the past, when we would meet somebody or get the right job. And then you walk in one day and something happens, and it just blows everything up. But that's not happening anymore. I mean, it's really not happening anymore. And other than, and at least in my opinion, from what I'm observing, even within myself and other people, the universe is speaking very clearly to us. It taps us on the shoulder, it nudges us. And like you said, if not, it'll give you a kick in the ass, because it's time is up, it's time is up, and it's time to maximize the potential. And the potential, or the way to navigate that potential, isn't like anything we've done before. It's just not. Everything is instantaneous. It's in the moment. It's being present. It requires your full attention, and it holds you accountable, because we are creating everything, and should hold us accountable. Rightfully so.
Yeah, 100%. So having that bus, is that something that is that a sort of an old manifestation, or a vision that you got that would be something?
It was a vision.
Okay.
Like, so what happened to me was, in the summer of 2011, I had a lot of traumas in my life, and a lot of stuff that was building up over a few years. And I won't go into detail, but it was like a lot of light workers, and I didn't suffer near as like other people have, but so what happened was, I had an experience with as I understand it today, my higher self. I was in my backyard at 1:11 in the morning, and the face of the cosmic Jesus appeared in the trees. And he said to me, what are you so worried about? And I said, what are you talking about? I got 4 kids in the house. My spouse is very ill. I'm on welfare. I've lost everything I've had. And he said, I've been watching over your family for 2.5 years. And 2.5 years prior, my my wife at the time had tried to kill herself and eaten 50 Tylenol PMs. And so when he said that, I just, this whole wave of peace and love and whatever just washed over me. And so it went on. And so for about 7 months, I walked the streets, and I lived on the streets, and I just connected every day, and I was processing and transmuting. I didn't even know what that word meant back then.
Mhm.
Um, and so ended up having a kind of a really powerful, I had these divine episodes occurring, but because I was living a life of solitude and not really conveying it to people, and if I did, they think I was crazy. I didn't know if it was my imagination, if I was crazy, if I wasn't crazy. I was all over the place. And so one night I was at a friend's house and I had rented a room for a week, and I made dinner and I went for a walk, and I came back to my room and I had something on my mind. There was something being presented to me. Um, and I had a glass of warm tea on the nightstand that was very warm, and it was a very tall, thick glass. And I put my hands together and I said, "Can I trust this path?" And the tea exploded like somebody shot it with a shotgun. It exploded all over me. And in that moment, I just saw in third eye Archangel Michael. And he said, "Now do you get it?" And I said, and all the things that had been coincidences separate of themselves all kind of lined up. And he said, "You remember this, and this, and now I'm blowing up this glass of tea and throwing it all over your body." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm beating at a higher vibration." So I made the personal decision, obviously based on that advice, not to follow that path. And I spent another 2, 3 weeks, doing my thing. And I checked myself in a hotel room, and I went to, for about 10 days, and I just went into deep, deep dimensional states of, and I'm not talking about like yogi, I'm talking about hell, and mostly hell and demons and all this stuff. And but when I came out of it, right after I came out of it, this boy that had transitioned at 14 years old by a horrible accident where he hung himself came to me. And I had known his mother in junior high and high school, but I'd never spoken to her. I just knew who she was. And so this whole thing started. And what basically happened was she was a medium, and I went to connect with her and visit her. And in the first session, I guess, if you would call it that, my third eye opened up more, and I started to get a download. And in the download, to answer your question, all I saw for a day and a half was highways and bridges, and I'm traveling through the US and then traveling through Europe and then traveling through Australia and traveling through India. And I'm like, what the hell is this? But one of the things that came out of that very clearly to me was there would be a soul train, a bus, a Sology bus, and which was still a new word to me because I had just gotten it. And but anyway, I guess this is the first edition. So we have a 1998 Ford 350 diesel. It's an old city bus from Vancouver, Washington, and we're going to strip it out and we're going to turn it into a studio on wheels with a couple of bunk beds.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. And um has I'm curious to know, like, because I know that you guys traveled a bit and now you have your
Mhm.
own place. How does Morgan feel about being back on the road again? Um
Well, we're home now.
mm,
So we this place found us, or she found it, or both, back in June. Well, we were yes, we were always on the road. We did live in Hawaii I got called to Hawaii late 2018. We lived there for a few months, and it was very nice. And then I got a download like mid June, mid July, and I told her, and she's like, "Be quiet. Don't tell me that." And the download was that we're leaving because it was a paradise. We were in Kauai. It was beautiful. We were just making it, but that wasn't any different. We were just had enough just to get by. We were broadcasting a lot, and so what ended up happening, we came to the mainland on August the 8th in LAX and arrived at Terminal 5D, which was, and then we went on this whole thing. We went to Florida in January and spoke at a conference about sacred sexuality and divine union in Helios Gamos. And then the COVID hit. And we ended up
Yeah.
staying in Florida for a while. Somebody gifted us a house, and we paid what we could towards it. But then at one point in May, she said we're supposed to go to Arkansas and live. And so I am I don't think I'm smart, but one of the things I know I'm smart about is to listen to the intuition of my divine feminine, whether it's the one within me or the one that's the mirror of me. And so we came and we found a place, and so it's been nice to have a place and then be able to come back. We just came back from Sedona after 3.5 weeks. She's very, yeah, very. We're both very happy to have a home base.
Yeah.
The traveling's okay as long as we have a place to go back to.
Yeah.
But we're not making any demands on the universe because we know what happens when you do that.
I was just about to say that after my question. I was like, you know what? Like, I know as well as you do, and probably many others, that when it's time to move, and as we get sent on assignments or whatever you want to call it, you can't
No,
say no. It's just
no, you can't.
the way you go. You're needed in a specific location for whatever reason. Often many, and often we don't
Yes.
fully understand it till we get there, or
No.
sometimes we may never know the full extent of.
No, we've had so many times. She came over the first time in 2017, and we were going from Arkansas to Utah, and with a couple of friends, and we were in separate cars. We were kept in separate cars the whole way, and there was stuff happening with the weather. She looked in the clouds and saw Jesus' face, and she saw my face, and then we jumped out of the car in this trailer park where we got lost, and we went to this. There was a big butte behind it, and there was a double rainbow. I mean, these things just kept happening, and they've happened the whole way. We were driving through Alabama on the way to Florida in January, and our phones went out. We got we were on GPS, and we got off on this little road for like 90 miles, and it just got the phones went out. There was nothing. We were just like, no, we weren't even saying anything. And then after it was all over, I just said to her, I think we just did a bunch of grid work. And she said, well, yeah, of course. But yeah, you're right. There's so many things. There's always multiple meanings and multiple purposes. And I think the movement of people like ourselves is a big part of not only activating parts of the grid, but getting activated ourselves.
Yeah.
It's mutual.
I was about to say it's very much reciprocal, isn't it? Because we get the energy that comes through, but then we're giving it back to Gaia and working that energy. Yeah. I love these stories. I think you have so many great short stories to share. I was told to grid the light, seed the light from Melbourne up to Gold Coast, Queensland. This is back in the end of 2016. And it was one of those, like, how am I going to do it? Blah, blah, blah. And one of the instances was that I wanted to avoid going into the Sydney centre because I didn't want to, go through the city. And somehow, I don't know how it happened, I found myself because I was following the GPS, and it took me. It was one of those moments I thought I was going straight bypassing, and then I was in the city, and I did this whole looping. There was many components to it, but it was definitely a reroute. And then next thing I found myself back on the freeway. couple hours later, and I was like, exactly what I
It's like a timeline
Yeah,
shift.
yeah, yeah, very much so.
And we found that because she came in 2017, 2018, and of course together in 2019 and 2020. And we have found that we retrace our steps a lot, which is
Yes.
weird. Like I left Houston from the original studio. I really went on 3 spirit walks. Although I guess I would have been considered homeless in even the last one. So I left Houston October 13th, 2016. Morgan hasn't come to that point. We're still, I'm still doing my thing. And so although we were connected, there wasn't, from my standpoint anyway, always a conscious, although she was always in my field. But my point is, so I left. I didn't have any money. I had nothing. I had 11 cents in my pocket. True story. I left everything in my townhouse. And a sister who was part of Sology at the time said, I'll come get you. And so she drove from Arkansas to come get me. Now, I'd been to Arkansas, passed through Arkansas, worked through Arkansas my whole life, but I never, even thought about coming here. So she picked me up and she brought me to Van Buren, Arkansas, which is where we're at today. This is weird. So she brings me to Van Buren, Arkansas. I stayed a couple of months, made a bunch of music, and then I left. And then Morgan comes in 2017. We went to Houston. I worked diligently in her zero pointing process and really expanded my third eye. And then I kind of got booted out. And again, I don't have any money. So this other friend who I'd met from the other friend in 2016 owned a metaphysical shop in Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is right, the main city. Van Buren would be like a suburb. You can come up here and do a Sology show and stream it and do a local show. So anyway, the point is we came here together. And we came again the next year together, passing through. Then we came together. We came here a year ago for Thanksgiving, passing through to go to Florida. And now we came back and lived here. So there's something, and this has happened to us in other places too, where we've retraced our steps: Sedona, Shasta, California. I mean, just different places individually and together. So there's something about that too, and I don't really understand it all. But like you said, you just listen and you follow the guidance. And I think more and more people are doing that, and that's part of the reason that this magical, the human part of us we call magical frequency, is starting to really expand and show itself.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm so engrossed in your story, and it's giving me all these different. I love the way that you go back over, and I find that sometimes it's like almost like anchoring in that future timeline, and sometimes it's very apparent to me that it's closing off older ones, or or maybe doing both, perhaps. But
it is both. It is. We got married in 2018, and this is all. There's a lot of stories all in between all this. I'm just giving you the short version. So we thought we were going to live in Georgia because I found a place to live, and Sology was just like starting to be able to sustain a little bit, which is just me. But I'm going to get my lady over here and write, and it's whatever. So I had rented a basement in Georgia at a friend's house, someone that was part of Sology at the time. And we stayed there for a while, ended up on a whim. Things just aligned, went to New Jersey. Our friend just became a minister. We had this incredible divine episode that was our union, which is a huge thing. We have a 9-minute video on our YouTube page that it's just incredible. You watch it, it's just got galactic, it's everything. But anyway, what my point is she had to leave, the visa was up. So I went back to Houston, which I really had no desire to, but I have kids there and I had to take care of a legal matter. And so I go back to Houston and I might have had, a few $100s more than I normally had. Let's put it that way. And I found myself in a hotel that was in the neighborhood of where I walk the streets. And I was going through like this masculine expansion, which means distorted masculine, severe pain and discomfort. And Morgan's back in Australia and I'm alone. And, it's just, that was kind of the air. And all of a sudden I found myself in this hotel with no money, broke again. Not only broke as in financially, but broke in like I lost a bunch of ego identity. And I remember going out onto the street and walking the street and doing a video, which is what I do. You know, I would just, that's how Soulji was kind of born on, at least on video, was through these spirit walks. And I just said, I'm on the street, da 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 da. This is weird. I'm walking the same path I did before. And, but that was a clearing. So that, as an example, that was a closing out of, and then of course the next day, it's always darkest before the dawn. The next day, a bunch of people got together, kicked in. I got a few $100s, and I was able to sustain myself. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
It's so magical how, and I've experienced, I'm sure many have, of the intense crash point where it's a necessary process, and then as you go through it, then the influx of abundance or whatever you need at that moment just sort of comes through. I still become completely amazed at that process that's ongoing. Yeah.
Well, it's I think part well, and I don't know if it's the biggest challenge, but I think one of the biggest challenges we have is getting used to this natural frequency, which is abundance and unconditional love and trust and so on. Um, but it, but it's a little bit difficult to. First of all, we all have had a problem because of the programming in accepting things, like accepting a compliment, accepting money or a gift. And so when you get these lightning bolts come out of the sky and you catch them with your bare hands and you go, wait, I remember being in, I went from Arkansas in 2017 to New York City. I got booted out of Arkansas and I had $250 and the ticket was $237. I'd never been to New York City. It was 2 feet of snow in Arkansas and 3 feet in New York. And so I took a bus and it ended up staying in the Bronx for about 3 months in a room that a friend and his family allowed me to stay in. I had no money, I had no income, and I remember walking because I'm very much into nature, so most of my journey has been involved nature beings and the environments of the elementals, and that's just where I do my thing, right? In private, my rituals and whatever would come to mind. So I'm in New York City and I've got no money and I'm trying to get this love of my life over here who can't see how it's going to happen because I'm a homeless hobo, and rightfully so. And I walked outside to the back of it's an old World War II apartment building. And I walked outside behind it and there was 3 trees, just 3 little trees. And I said, well, this is the best I can do. So I connected with the trees and I just told the universe, I'm busting my ass, can you throw me a bone or something? So anyway, I went upstairs, I went to bed, and I was woken up by the notification on your cell phone, which it was a weird notification because I never heard it before. But it was an email from PayPal. Somebody had sent $1,000. And so these are the things I'm talking about. Like that was not a consistent flow. It had never happened to me before, but now I think we're getting to the point now where this is something that's conceivable that it can occur to us every day.
Yeah.
If we can just accept it and stay with it rather than go, oh my God, and then go tell the whole world, guess what happened to me? Guess what happened to me? Jesus came in my room and talked to me, or the Syrians came in my room and talked, and get over that part of it and just say, wow, this is really how it works. And I think more and more of that is happening now, even given the superficial circumstances that we're all obviously attuned with in terms of the quarantine and the COVID and the election and, all that stuff. This is not going to be stopped because more and more people are tapping into it because they're having the courage to follow that guidance.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I think that's being in that flow of just accepting that is the new divine human way of living and where we're moving forward as humanity, as a collective. I think it's beautiful that you share that, because I think it's through the power of the personal story that people can start to incorporate that into their own awareness and experience.
Mhm.
Because I think quite often the first couple of times that you have what I call the holy shit moments,
Mhm.
you can get really elated by it, and or the ego reject, a bit of both. That ego human aspect of us is like, oh no, that's not possible, or tries to rationalize it in some way. It's just
Mhm.
no, just flowing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Morgan talks a lot about, she'll remind me from time to time that, through the years, because she was downloading since 1999 and pretty high powered stuff too, and pretty profound divine episodes as well. And she would say, God, something would happen. I would think I'm pretty clever.
Mm,
And she learned early on to not get carried away,
yeah.
and I can identify with the same thing. I remember, when I kind of opened up into the etheric field and started to have conversations with Jesus and ascendeds and so on, they would tell me these stories, which seemed to be a past life story,
Mm,
which would have
mm-hmm,
made me so and so's son or so and so's,
mm-hmm,
and all these very seemingly prolific lives, but really, um, for some reason, I didn't get caught up in it, and I knew that it was not literal from the human perspective, but somehow it was literal from the cosmic
yeah.
coding perspective. But I didn't know any of this language or any of this nomenclature at the time. I hadn't met the ET in my life. I hadn't met Morgan for another 50 years. So I didn't have any type of, understanding of it. But there seems to be something else that's coming to the surface, and that is this innateness, this innate knowing everybody has. And so it's making it a little bit easier to accept things and then therefore be in the flow. And also, it's expanding by what you said when people talk about it, whether it's on camera or sitting in your, den privately with another person. There's something about the telling these stories not to be tied to the past, but to provide code for
Yes.
ourselves and each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because just through you sharing right now, I'm having so many things that are true. So I hope that I have no doubt, not that I hope, I
That's
have
how
no
the
doubt.
show goes.
Yeah. um, I'm going to bring something else up, because obviously we're talking about the expansion that's happening with the abundance and prosperity. But I want to talk about some of the other things, because I know you often talk about it. Um, and it always gets me excited when you start bringing up teleportation and bilocating, and how that will be a part of you know our experience moving forward. And every time you say those things, every cell in my body just lights up, and it's like, yes. um, and it's only just been in the last week for me that I've started downloading how easy that is, and having these experiences. So I thought I'd
Yeah.
ask you your thoughts on that, or anything you want to share.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that this happened to you in the last week. We've had it's just been an acceleration of activations, frequency, and um, volume of code, especially over the last few weeks. I mean, the trip to Sedona was not a coincidence. I mean, for instance, we were told before we left for Sedona, that we would be meeting other couples of the same frequency, specifically two when we got there, one later on, other couples in between. We would also be meeting androgynous beings that would be carrying the same code as the couples. So there was already a crescendo of energy that was occurring. And of course, that's not just Todd and Morgan or Sedona. That's available and accessible throughout the grid. So it was probably, and when we got back, and it's continued, I think it was 2 nights ago, excuse me, going to what you said. So we connect, I'm laying in bed. We, she pulled down some things. In fact, she didn't express anything verbally. This was one of the days when we get up the next day, and I said, well, do you know what happened? She said, you tell me. And I told her what happened. She goes, okay, let me fill in the rest of the blanks. So
Oh, I
we were
love
right
that.
there telepathically, right?
Mm.
And it had to do with the feminine, again, taking the higher ground so the masculine could then come up. And so there's some stories behind it, but that's not what I was getting at. What I am getting at is that I was told to get out of the bed, get out of the bed and stand up next to the bed and face the closet, is really what they told me. So I get up and I did that, and I could barely stand up. You know how sometimes when you get hit, you're like all wobbly and your equilibrium's
Yes.
kind of off. So
Not
I'm
very
I'm
well.
there. It's pitch dark. I mean, I know the closet's in front of me. There's not enough light to really make anything out. And all of a sudden, I could see the kind of like a cosmos background
Mm.
in front of me. There was no wall. And there not only was there no floor, but it felt like there was no floor under my feet. So I started to say, okay, what's going on here? And they said, look, this is how close you are. The what has been considered like a human experience
Mm.
is becoming a divine human experience. And what that means is that you will start to experience dimensionality in the physical. So there was a couple of things that happened. Like they said, take a step forward, and I'm like, the wall's there. And they said, well, just put your hand out a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you can get past the erroneous belief system that there's a wall there or that it's different than you, then you can put your hand right through there. Now, this is something I've done laying in bed next to her as the same type of things would happen. I'll put my arm in the air and it will disappear into this darkness, right?
Yeah.
Like not darkness like from the light darkness, but
Mm.
so I think there's a reason that you've had this happen in the last week,
Uh-huh.
because it's not just you and not just me and Morgan. It's available and accessible and occurring all over the place. And the only thing that's holding the speed of its awareness, let's say publicly, is nobody's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But more and more people are talking about it because of venues like this, and that's all that needs to happen.
Yep.
Someone just needs to hear somebody say it, and then go, oh, like it opens up in them, and then that possibility and reality then comes into play. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely. I mean, you're talking to somebody who because of who I'm partnered up with, even back in 2015, immediately having etheric mergings, helioscamos. Someone's on the other side of the world, and you can feel them touching and holding your heart and all the other chakras, right? And then to have those experiences side by side without having traditional physical intimacy, but having all the sensations. I think we talked about that before. So now it would only make sense that if we're transforming individually as within without.
Yeah.
So if we're having these transformations within ourselves, and our body, as many people can attest to, is transforming and crystallining,
Yep.
then it would only make sense that as we remove the layers of illusion and the shrouds over the soul, so to speak, that it would then the vessel would be filled with
Mm.
what we have once considered interdimensional, dimensional, lucid dream experiences. So yeah, I 3 nights ago I saw quite a few aspects materialize uh, after we connected, and I guess she was sleeping or maybe she was doing her own thing. Uh, that's happened before,
Mm.
but when I say they, I just mean the understanding, the innate knowing was here's a little bit more,
Yeah.
here's a little bit more, here's a little bit more, and I got to believe that it's moving fast enough that it's conceivable um, that we could even be doing some of this stuff by the end of the year.
I
Seriously.
totally agree with you. It just the pace and the speed. But I loved how you were describing that experience of like your hand disappearing, because what you described literally came through in a session that I did just in the last week. And as you were saying, I was like, oh my goodness, and the experience that I had, I was actually driving my car, and I've only ever had this in dream space, and it happened in this reality. I was driving my car, and all of a sudden I was so acutely aware that I was standing on a corner in Brazil, and I was looking around, and I was aware that I was there almost in a physical, and I was just like, whoa, okay, pull the car over. This is
When was this?
I was about a
No.
week, not
Okay.
even a week
So it
ago.
was recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the reason I asked it because and again I can't really pinpoint when it happened.
No.
I think some of it happened during like I'm doing now, and some happened while I was laying in the bed with her. But I kept having, and this is again in the last week, I kept having these images very much like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would look and I'd say, "Oh, where am I? Like I know this place. Like I know where I'm at." And I don't know if it was a street corner, or if I was on a hill in a meadow, or but I remember, and it wasn't just one. It was like probably 7 or 8 times it happened to me, and I thought this is new. This is a
Yeah.
new twist. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so exciting. Um, I do have one final question because I'm
Mm,
conscious of time and I know you've had
mm,
a long day, but the importance of divine union
mm.
on the planet through this process, perhaps as a general question, but maybe more specifically from where we are towards the end of this year. Any
Yes.
sort of thoughts on that? Because
Well, first of all, you know, a lot of these terms get distorted: divine union, twin flame, even ascension, enlightened, light worker, star seed. But it's an interesting thing, and I can speak to this more now than before Sedona,
Mhm.
because you know there's if everything is energy, which it is, and there's frequency involved. Uh, I don't know. Now, a lot of people, I've had a out of body and near death, and a lot of people have. And you get to this place, and you're like, I don't want to leave. Everything's like perfect. But as we're in the physical body, we still have stuff, other factors, other dynamics, and so we work through that and we raise our frequency. But it seems to me that the highest frequency would be what we would term as human beings, our human aspect, divine union within ourselves, or divine union. I once wrote a piece, the universe is my twin flame. What
Mhm.
is the universe? The universe is everything external to me, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's, to my knowledge and to my experience, and I'm not saying that I know everything because I don't, is seems to be in this realm at this point in time the highest frequency there is. Um, Now, there's been a lot of talk through the years, sacred texts and religions and Far Eastern philosophies about divine union, sacred marriage, and so on. Um, but now you have another element that's been thrown into it, which is the physicalization, the physicality of, of two people that are mirroring what's happening within each other. Let's say that. On top of that, as I said about the Sedona trip, the androgynous beings that actually carry the same frequency.
Mhm.
So I'll end it like this. So Morgan, she pulled down before we left because she does most of that. Mine comes in through feeling. She starts talking. I get it. Occasionally I might pull something in and say, I got something to say, but this is the way that energy works. The feminine is the one with the intuition. The feminine pulls down the information. She's the receiver. And then the masculine is the creator, the projector.
Mhm.
So they said to us, basically you're going to meet these other couples of the same frequency. You're going to exchange code. You're going to meet these androgynous beings. They are going to, same code. They're all triad connections, and they're just going to like multiply. And there's going to be this huge wave, like a pulsation, that's going to just shoot out. And it couldn't just be there. It had to be many, many places around the globe. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that uh, I don't know, I don't know what it's going to do,
Yeah.
but what I do feel is that it's going to become, and this has come in uh, through our communion for a long time, which is people are going to start to notice that illumination of that frequency more and more and more. Just like we were told before we went to Sedona, these androgynous beings will seek you out. These couples will seek you out. We will find each other. And it happened. And it happened so many times. So if that was a microcosm of the whole world, or say one quadrant of many quadrants where it's occurred in the world, then that means it's taken hold and it's anchoring. And if we can get past, oh, it's got to be a couple, or it's got to be an androgynous individual, or it could be a father and a son. It could be two strangers that meet. It could be that energy, that frequency is available and accessible, and it's real. And I think the only thing I could think of how to answer that question is that it's out there. Look for it. If you have the desire for it, be open to the way it comes to you, and embrace it, accept it, and actualize it through your faith, and through your pure love, and through your desire to serve, because it's all the same thing.
Beautiful.
It really is.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Todd. It's
Absolutely.
just an absolute pleasure to listen and learn and expand through this connection, this conversation. So I can't thank you enough for your time, and thank you everyone for watching. As I said in the beginning, I'll put all the details so that you can connect in with Soulology Studios and follow along there and watch your amazing updates and interviews and collaborations that you have. So thank you. Thank you very much.
You take
And
care. I'll see
all
you
right.
soon.
See you
I'll reach
soon.
out to you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.